Hi, I'm Lisa Andria, Transformation Life Coach. Welcome to the Ladies Who Leap podcast, where guests share their inspiring stories of leaping out of their comfort zone with confidence and power and into a life of purpose and fulfillment. Let's listen to their life-changing stories so that we can all learn how to gain the courage to take a leap of faith into a life that we love so that we can all be Ladies Who Leap. Let's get started. Welcome to the Ladies Who Leap podcast. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to the inspiring stories of people that took a leap of faith to reach new heights in their life. My goal is that their stories inspire you to take the first step of many to follow your own unique dreams. My guest today is Michelle DeKeyser. Michelle is a dedicated mama empowerment speaker, author, and coach, passionate about helping moms discover their unique genius and inspire their children. As the founder of Connecting Mamas, she created the supportive community of the Mama Genius Hub, where mothers can connect, learn, and grow through the transformative power of women's circles. Michelle also hosts the Mama Genius Hub podcast, sharing insights and inspiration for moms everywhere. Her heartfelt mission is to create a world full of passionate, connected mamas who lovingly inspire their children and others around them. Michelle's the proud mother of three: Liam, 13, Bella, 11, and Lily, 8. Welcome, Michelle.
Well, thank you so much, Lisa, for having me on here. I'm just so excited because I know that we've connected through a festival that I'm hosting, but I just love meeting more speakers who are getting out there and putting their message out there. And so I just felt so connected to you, and I was just so gracious that you invited me onto your podcast. And so thank you for having me.
Thank you. You know how when you meet someone and you just have that instant connection? That is exactly what happened with you and I. And I'm so impressed with your mission. It's something that I think is very needed for moms across this country. So you started out in what I believe is the most noble of professions, which is teaching. I have a lot of teaching friends, some retired. Can you tell the story of how you went from teaching to deciding as a mom to discover your passion?
Well, I started teaching mostly I was actually at NYU, and I had the English degree. I'd got my bachelor's, and I was like, what do I do with this? And actually then ended up, I was the person I was dating at the time. His mom said, well, what about teaching? I'm like, no, 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 I'm not going to be a teacher. I don't want to be a teacher. I said, I'm not going to teach with an English degree, right? And then she was like, well, what about elementary? I'm like, I never thought about elementary. So I applied back to graduate school at NYU and get my elementary credential. However, so I get my credential, and actually, when I was at NYU, when I was getting my bachelor's, I was actually the first graduating class after 9/11. And so that was interesting to be in New York at that time as well. So all of that was part of my journey of I think kind of led me to when I was there for 9/11, I didn't know how to help or what to do, but I always had that in the back of my head. I want to do more. I want to help more. I think that's kind of guided me because it's been a couple of situations lately where other people have shared stories of that's been a pivotal moment for them. And I realized it was just in me to figure out how to help. I just didn't know at the time. And so for me, that's kind of how it stemmed out. I wanted to do more. So then I got my credential in New York, but then I broke up with that guy, and I decided that I was going to move back home, which was California. Well, when got back to California, they're like, I was really having a tough time trying to find an elementary position. And my friend was teaching middle school at the time. She's like, well, why don't you give it a try? Maybe we could teach together in the middle school. So I get into the meeting. There's 5 principals, some high schoolers, some middle schoolers, right? Middle school principals. And I thought it went really well. So I never get called back by the middle school, but one of the high schools calls me back. So I get into this meeting, which I haven't told this story in a long time. I get into this meeting. I'm halfway in the meeting when the principal tells me, well, do you know why you're here, not at Mira Loma, which was the middle school? I'm like, no, I have no idea. And he's like, well, one of your references said you don't relate well to kids, which actually stems back to a graduate assistant program I had at NYU. And she put us in an immersive school in Harlem to do this after school math program as 2 graduate students who've never taught before with no support. And so, and then the teacher I had during the day to supervise the student teaching even came to support us because she saw how much it was needed. And so luckily I had her to say my side of the story. So that's how I ended up in high school, was that story, and like someone throwing you under the bus and thinking you could trust them, because I thought we ended on good terms. And then to like use her as a reference, and just because that's she wanted to get back at me or something. I don't know, but I was just like, that feeling of trying to get someone back at something, like that doesn't sit well with me. And so that's just never been something that I want to do. And so when I ended up teaching, that kind of like set the tone of that first year, and I was really looked upon and stuff. And it wasn't until my second year that I finally got a different vice principal who was giving me my evaluations, and she all of a sudden it was like exceeds expectations. But like I got all of that on my first evaluation. Like I finally felt like the challenge had been overcome, but it was like put into place. But then so I taught for a couple of years, but then my husband and I decided, after I took a trip to the summer before, I took a trip to Nepal to teach Buddhist monks English. When we were looking at plane tickets, he's like, "What if I took the summer off and we traveled around the world in 2 months?" And I'm like, "I already have my deposit. I want to go." And so I came back and I said, "Well, what if we take a whole year off the following school year and do that?" And so that's what ended up happening. Now we were almost like the trip was already planned, and we still hadn't really talked if we're getting married or not. And all of a sudden I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to go on this year-long trip if we don't have this conversation. So we actually ended up getting married halfway through in Australia, and our parents came out for it on this trip along the way. And so then I kept teaching in the high school when we knew that we were going to move to Wisconsin, but the school district didn't. I was pregnant with my second child, and I just decided that it was time to they came to us a month into the school semester and said someone needs to move to the middle school. And I knew it'd only be for 3 months for me, and I knew who would have to go if I didn't volunteer. So I volunteered for the position. That was the hardest. Middle school is not my thing. With seeing my kids in middle school, definitely not my jam. But when we moved to Wisconsin, then my credential wouldn't work here for high school. So then I ended up in first grade ended up eventually in first grade for half a year in Milwaukee Public Schools. But went with 2 kids in daycare, and that salary was a complete wash almost. That's when I
That
decided.
is a real shame too. I mean, it's just a shame. Yeah.
But that is when I decided to stay home, when it was just almost a complete wash. Like it really wasn't much. And so that's when I decided to stay home, and I really went into being a stay-at-home mom and made that decision. Because before it was like I was on unemployment for moving, and then I was like, well, am I going to go back? Am I not? And then I went back and I finally made that decision. I was struggling to make that decision. But then when I stayed home, COVID happened. And I decided that during that year, my kids were older, and I was going to homeschool them for the year. Being an ex-teacher at that point, I had put them in virtual summer school because they offered that in our district. Now, so I was like, nah, I can't be a substitute teacher, like helping them like this if we're going to have to be out for the year. Because at that time, both my father and brother-in-law had cancer. And no one knew what COVID was. So we didn't want to put more risk of anything at that point, since we didn't know. So I was like, I'm just pulling them from school and teaching them for the year. So that's what happened. But then, and so on the first day that they went back, I started a program called 75 Hard. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's just one of those programs where you do everything on that list for 75 days, 2 45-minute workouts. One has to be outside regardless of the weather. You're drinking a gallon of water, you're sticking to a diet, you're taking a picture, you're reading 10 pages of learning, whatever you want to learn. And if you don't do anything, you go back to day one. Well, I ended up almost completing the entire year. And then, so it was between that and homeschooling my kids during that year, where this idea of wanting more for myself as a mom really came forth. And because I felt before that I was kind of living in a fog, and I just didn't know what I wanted. I felt that martyrdom that a lot of moms feel, that cycle that we've been going through as moms. And that's what I want to break, is because when moms aren't living in their genius or doing what feels right to them, we're perpetuating that, because our moms had that same dream for their kids to be something. And then it keeps perpetuating as soon as we become moms, if we go into that martyrdom and like say we have to give everything to our kids. But when I never asked the question, like when I go down this path, I kept thinking, what am I going to take away from my kids by going down this path? I never asked the question, what are they going to gain by it? And that's where I leave my story for right now.
Yeah, because that's breaking the cycle. And it's so interesting that you actually came to that realization when a lot of people don't. Nobody was really thinking about even in that period. It's just recently, I would say, probably if you think about it, the last 5 years or so, where women are taking back our own empowerment and thinking about ourselves first. It's that whole thing, put your mask on, right? And then put the mask on the child. What was it? Oprah, I think, said it a long time ago, but nobody really took it to heart.
Mhm.
And even again, I know you really cater to moms, but even women that don't have children, they do things for others first before they do things for themselves. And then teaching your children, what a great lesson, right? To teach your children to say, find your genius. I'm going to show you, I'm doing it. I'm going to lead by example. That's really cool. And that is breaking a cycle.
But what I've also noticed though is when we don't do that, we're still projecting on them. So what our hopes and dreams, or even like fixing their behavior or something, are projections on who they are when we're not feeling we're in ourselves or living our passions, right? We're projecting something onto them. When we start living our passions, we were that detective figuring out what we wanted. Now we're like in that role where we can be a detective helping them figure out what they want rather than, I mean, projecting even like just the behaviors that we're supposed to do as a kid, right? Like in school, you have to sit a certain way, you have to do this. And for me, with my son, one of the things, the story I always tell is I struggled. One of the things I projected on him was my need of belonging and thinking because he didn't have friends or because he didn't do these things that he needed that. And so I focused on that. And that caused such a rift between us that he didn't even want anything to do with me. And then I throw my hands up in the air and go, well, he's like me to my husband, you go deal with him. But then as a mom, that made me feel so horrible. When I stopped asking those questions about that and started asking questions about what he was interested in, I found out that he's a chef. He can make a gourmet dinner for the entire family now. He's 13. He's on a roll to possibly have his own podcast, but he loves speaking, loves taking after those stuff. So who knows? I don't know. But him and my daughter also have been in have done each a summit where they've taken those talks and turned them into books. We're published authors together as chapters in a book. So I mean, those things would not have come about if I kept focusing on my projections of what I was lacking, because I was the one lacking the feeling of belonging. He didn't. He may be lacking from my eyes, but he didn't feel like he was or that he needed that. And that's where we have to come into play as parents, is figuring out really what is it they need as their individual selves, not what is my needs that I think they need.
Wow. And
That's just
when you do that with your children, talk about breaking a cycle. Now they grow into adults that are very sure of themselves, that know what they want to do in life, that have a job and a career that they love. If everybody was able to do that, we'd have a better world. I mean, this is about a higher purpose, a better world. That's how I view it when you're talking about that.
Well, talking of breaking cycles, my mom is manic depressive, but so my kids will see when she comes over. Sometimes she just has to go to a room and keep to herself, and just that's just how she does things. But I try to explain to them that that's the way that I grew up, and so just for me, I just suppress more of my feelings because I want to again, that nurturing feeling. I want it to be there for her, do those things even early on as a kid. However, this was actually just last week. My 8-year-old was laying in bed, and she said, "Thank you, Mom." I'm like, okay, what did I do? I'd like to know what you're thanking me for. She's like, thank you for trying to do things different than how you grew up. And she didn't quite say like that, but that was the message. And like she understood because we've been working on it and saying, like, I understand that grandma needs to do that. I learned that, but I want you to express your feelings. I want you to be able to get out there and do things a little bit differently than how I grew up. And she, as an 8-year-old, was just like, thank you, Mom. And that was like way after, like it was like I didn't even know any of that, but they take it in and then they express it. And that's the beauty I see in it.
So how far ahead are they than when we were that age? So
M-
much farther ahead.
My middle daughter, she's just so sure of herself, like just like I just love like it's not even confidence, it's just she sees her worth.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm still working on that, but I love that she already knows her worth in this world, and it's not something that she has to unlearn. Whereas we're in this stage where we're have to unlearn that we weren't, that we think we're not worthy, that we are worthy. And so that's where we're at as a lot of us as moms right now, just the way that we grew up, the way things happen differently and try and do things different now. And so really it is when you break that cycle of martyrdom and see your own worth and see your own genius. We all have it in us. It's in different forms. It comes out in different ways. And it's just for you to discover what that is and then show them how a happy, healthy adult figures these things out, how you apologize to him when you make a mistake, because we're going to make mistakes. We're human when things don't go right, but explaining that to them. Like, I can't believe I just blew up at you. I shouldn't. They're like, that's okay, mom. Like, no, you need to let me finish and you let me finish apologizing because I should not have done that. And just, doing those things like that. So they know that we are human, we're fault, but it doesn't mean that we can't take accountability for our actions.
Well, you said the word mama genius. So, I mean, and I want you to explain the Mama Genius Hub and then the Mama Genius festivals, but you learned and really embraced women's circles by someone actually, by you getting involved in them, and then you wanted to create them. So tell a little bit about that.
So I was inspired by Dr. Shinoda Bolen, who wrote The Million Circle. Um, and so she was actually at, I saw it's one day, I don't know, as I just decided I need to look at her website and see what she's up to. She was going to be at the World Religion Parliament down the street in Chicago, an hour and a half from me. And I was like, I got to get into her workshop, got to figure out how to do it. My mom actually ended up coming to town and going with me for the week. And so it was there that I really immersed into, they had a whole floor for women, and they had women, like a whole red tent room where we had all kinds of circles. I learned so much about circling, but I actually got to meet her too, and actually got to have a conversation with her. I actually have a box of her books right now from one of her friends that I had met in a long story, but I actually like got to meet her, got to have a conversation with her. But what her message was is that the Million Circle is a tipping point. So the Dalai Lama prophesied in 2009 that the Western one would change the world. How we do that is by these circles in terms of the conversation. It's opening up to a different level. I was in a circle last Wednesday, 3 women in there I'd never met. By the end, it felt like we were best friends in 45 minutes. I mean, it's the structure of how we as women need to be seen, heard, and feel that belonging in us, but you need to be witnessed. You don't need to be told what to do. You don't need to be fixed. And a lot of times we just need to get that off our chest to get it out of our heads, because there's only 2 ways to get that out, is by being witnessed by someone else or writing it down. And sometimes writing down isn't enough, but when you're witnessed by someone who's nodding rather than saying, oh, well, you should really do it this way. There's such a degree that when you start to do it in a safe space, then you're able to get that confidence and that self-worth back that you can take to your family, to other people, and open up again and learn that vulnerability is key, but learning when to be vulnerable. It's such a word that's used so much right now, but it's a word that you really gotta still hold into your heart and realize, yes, I need to be vulnerable, but I only need to be vulnerable to certain people. Whereas when you put your boundaries up and you realize who's in your inner circle to share with and who's not, and you don't act mean towards the people who are in your inner circle, you're just not going to be as in depth with them. And that's the difference. We don't need to be mean to each other. Still be civil, still be polite, still be kind. You just don't have to share your insides to them. And so that's the key to it. So women's circles really, for me, help bring that out. So that kind of led me into wanting to do the Mama Genius Hub. Well, even before that is I had this idea. I wanted to create circles for moms. And I thought I wanted to do it directly with moms and create these in-person circles. And I had this whole plan, and I actually created my own in-person circle. However, my body like physically rejected it. Like I would be, the emotion would be like, in me was like, I would be like this antsy person every time they'd be in the chat chatting. I'm like, oh my God, they're not saying anything about me. And like, I just felt this like weird energy. And when one of them was even sick, I wanted to bring her food, but it wasn't like out of like that feeling you have when you want to give a gift. It was that feeling of need of having to do it to prove something to myself or to her, or I don't know. And so eventually I had to remove myself from that group, because when I look at it, we've conditioned ourselves to be by ourselves, to be in our houses, to be in our little cars, and we've lost how do we actually fully connect with someone. And so it's like me, like you jump in the deep end of a pool and you can't swim. that's what I was doing in that situation. So I had to remove and work towards unblocking them. And maybe it was just the wrong people or whatever it was to do that. And so the circle, this structure really helps provide that entry point, especially since this is all virtual. And it's for me right now, it's virtually on purpose to create an entry point that is accessible for a busy mom. But right now, when I realized I switched from directly working with moms to then working with mom speakers who have a message for moms, and realized that my mission was to collect and create the community and circle, the inner circle of all the speakers, so that we can then, as a group, collectively send our energy out to then circle all the moms. Because I want to be the one-stop shop for all moms, but my message only reaches certain moms, certain speakers. Whereas your message, Lisa, will reach other moms, other speakers. So my job is to bring them, all the speakers together, so that we can do that. And so that's what's being created right now, in the process of getting the beta out for the Mama Genius Hub, which is mini bite-sized courses for moms, each speaker having their own aspect in there. And so having like just a week long, so 5 little like things that are 15 minutes or less. So it's a 1 to 5 minute video, and then just like a sheet. So they're actually processing in the 15 minutes, not watching a 15-minute video. That's still too much. We need bite-sized, small pieces to start the movement forward. And then there's another section called the reconnect, because let's face it, we are human. Our kids know how to push our buttons. They will be pushed. But what do we do when they're pushed? We're creating 1 to 5 minute videos in there that you can, meditations, whatever the speaker feels called to when they do it, breath work, whatever it is, so that you as a mom can find your go-to buttons to, when they just blew me out of the gasket and I need 1 minute in the bathroom, what can I do that is actually going to help me get it back into my body? And that these are tips and ideas to help you do that, because we don't want to yell at our kids, but it's going to happen. And this gives us the opportunity to consciously decide, I'd rather respond than react to them. And it's going to happen because they are so good at it. They know just how to go.
I'm listening to you speak because this is some new information that I didn't know about, these how to in the meditation and the whole concept of what you're talking about. Because children and several generations now, communication is not their skill. They are now all online, they're texting, their words aren't even full words. They cut them down and you barely understand what they're saying. So it's a whole new world. And as a parent, you have to deal with that. And then the frustration of just normal stuff with kids and when they go through their ages and what is happening, and helping a mom deal with that, to say, okay, I'm just going to shut the door. I'm going to listen to a meditation. I have one that I'm going to refer to you because it's about forgiveness. So it's a great meditation, a Hawaiian meditation about forgiveness. But it is something.
Oh no, right?
Ho'oponopono, yes. It's a way for them to be able to relax and get and process without yelling at their children. That's huge. That's really, really huge. I'm
It's
not
so
a parent,
important.
but I know that I had a good mom that didn't blow up like that. Somehow she knew well, she had a difficult mom herself. And I think she literally wanted to be the exact opposite of what she had. So it was nice. I was reaping the benefits of that.
I love that.
So how does it feel? Because some people, when they're going towards leaping out of their comfort zone, it's very uncomfortable as they're doing it. They're getting into something new. But then when you find it and you do it, and you are actually doing something that you love, what does it feel like? What kind of impact did it have on your life?
Well, even just the last speaker meeting that you came to, like, it's only the second festival I'm doing, right? And so the nerves still hit, but all of a sudden, like, I'm inside the room and there was no more stress. It was just fun, like, to run that type of meeting. And like, and then there was no longer a sales pitch, because it was just like, this is what I'm offering. I want to show you what it's like. Choose if you don't. And for me, it was like, well, you see other speakers in here. If you don't want to join the festival, connect with each other. Like I just want to bring connection to you. And I think when you find what it is and what your genius is, and then you start doing it, it isn't a sales pitch any longer. It's just like, here's my offer. Feel free to take it or not take it. But let's just grow community and support each other. And that's what I think it's all about, is as women actually believing that other women can support each other, getting away from that mean girl concept that we have in our heads, that we're out to get each other, that we have to fight each other to get to the top of the glass ceiling, or whatever it is. we as women need to release some of the masculine energy that we've been given over the last 60 years because we want to try to be equals. We need to play from a different playing field of cooperation and lifting each other up, which is why I even create the hub, because I want to create the one-stop shop for all moms, but I can't do it alone. And so I want to make sure when I'm doing it that I'm giving affiliate links for the speakers, even if they bring in other speakers in. I want to make sure they get an affiliate link when the mom pays that they brought in, because it's still about the exchange and releasing the money that it's evil, but it is the exchange of energy. And when we do it in the right way, it doesn't feel like you're paying a lot. I mean, when you take courses that you really enjoy, or you're doing things that you really enjoy and you pay for it, like, I'm so glad that I did that. I enjoyed that. And that's what I want to bring, is releasing the pressure of the money and being able to support each other. And that's how women are going to rise. It's not by doing it by ourselves. We are geared for community. I was just in Africa with my son in Tanzania, working in schools, and we went to a cultural thing where there was a brick stove, and the women were just doing this hard work, because like we were even like peeling plantains, which sounds like bananas, but it sounds easy, but they were unripe, and you're like digging into them, but they're talking to each other, they're singing, they're dancing while they're doing it. We lost a lot of that in our first world, thinking we have to be serious, we have to do this. But when you start community with women supporting each other and doing a group something together, or a mission of something together, then it makes all the difference, because then you're no longer doing it alone. Having other speakers in the hub who I can run an idea by, and knowing that we're creating a product together so that we can reach all moms, because we can't. I know moms, you are busy, you got so much going on, and I just want to create that entry point for you. But I know as coaches, we couldn't necessarily do that by ourselves, because we still do need to make money. And so this will be that evergreen of know, like, and trust, so that moms can have a taste of who Lisa is, of who Abigail is, of who these speakers are before. Because right now there's so much information on the internet. Where do I go? What do I do? My husband's like, why would anyone want a 1 to 5 minute video? I'm like, because that's all I have time for. And if there's a 50-minute video, they're not going to watch it. And yes, it's free on YouTube. And yes, I can find it, but I'm not going to take the time to search for it because I don't have any time.
Exactly.
And so we have to put it in one spot and make sure that each of the speakers are in here are pure of heart, service first. My goal is like each speaker in here is about service first. The money will come later, but it really has to be from the heart. And everyone keeps saying business, personal. That is a man's way of doing things.
Mhm.
Why does it have to be both?
And I was just going to say, you can tell that all of that you're doing is from your heart. And then you literally just showed me it's from your heart. And you even mentioned, you motioned to your heart. And that's what I was going to say, was I can tell that all of what you're doing is coming from your heart. And that's what's important. When you come from your heart in anything that you do as service and helping others, it's unlimited. Your power, your impact on others, your help, your support, your positivity, it's all limitless. It really
Well,
is.
and then you stop worrying, like, for instance, the speaker being, well, okay, if they don't want to do the festival, that's okay. Or maybe they'll come next time, or whatever it is, because you're not feeling that strain. And I'll be honest right now, I'm still not necessarily in the plus side of the business yet, but I see it. And I see it happening right now because of that, because of the heart, because of what's going on. That I went into another meeting of someone who couldn't even make the festival. And she was also like, I want to join the next cohort for the hub already. And it wasn't even like a sales pitch. We were just talking and communing, and like just such on the same wavelength. And that is what it is finding the people on that wavelength. Because the problem is, once you decide that you want more, your friends, and especially mom friends around you, might not be there yet. And when they aren't there, here's your light right here in your hand. They start to blow it out. And then you start to let them blow it out. You have to protect that light, especially in the infancy stage of that. And that is by finding other communities at this moment. I'm not saying you need to get rid of them, but you don't need to share your business ideas with them. You don't necessarily need to share them what you're thinking about in those terms. You can stick to your same conversations with those friends, but then you have new conversations with other people who are on that same wavelength so your light doesn't get burnt out. Because it's so easy for people who are scared of what you might become and them losing you to dim your own light. And then you start to do it.
It's about the boundaries. You have a very nice way of saying it, that you just kind of speak to them about other things, and then you have and that's part of boundaries.
Exactly.
I was just speaking about that today, actually. And I'm hoping that you brought it. I normally ask for your favorite quote, mantra, prayer, or positive affirmation. Do you have something to share?
What I want to share with that on that is something I've been trying to do that I just learned from Lisa Nichols. And it's a little bit of mirror work. And so it's looking at yourself in the mirror every day and thinking of the number 7, and then asking yourself, what are 7 things that you feel that you did well today, that you're proud of, and saying it to yourself. What are 7 things that you want to forgive yourself for? And then what are 7 things you want to commit yourself to? And you say it to yourself every day. And I've done it a couple of days this week, and it's making me want to do it right now because I need to keep doing it. And I actually put a little post-it by when I brush my teeth to remind me to do it, because it's still not habit yet. The more we do it, it becomes habit, but I'm starting to do it. But it's really doing that inner work in you to figure out, what do you actually want?
Mhm.
What do you need to release? And having those conversations with yourself. And that's who you really need to get to know. Start
Yeah,
by just
and
getting
you
to
need
know
to set the
you.
time. You need to set the time to be yourself. And I need to do the same thing. I mean, I tell other people, and I keep saying, okay, this day is clear. I'll set that time aside. Okay, and it just keeps getting filled up with things. But I need to, and everyone needs to spend time with yourself and ask those questions. Those are amazing.
And we're talking 5 minutes,
Yeah, it's not a lot of time, but you need to just
but
do
it
it.
is powerful
Very
to just look at
powerful.
yourself in the mirror and to just have that conversation. And the forgiveness part, like, just it releases and allows you to get some of those feelings out that you were bottling up, and to see, what do you even need to feel like you need, because we are human. We need to forgive ourselves. We're going to make mistakes, but we just don't always want to admit it. But when you can start admitting to yourself who you really are, and the big one is what you actually want. We're so good at saying what we don't want, but so bad at saying what we actually want.
Look forward, not things you want to get away from. Look the things that you want to
The
get.
universe doesn't know, don't. And so
Exactly.
then you're bringing in what you don't want when you focus on it. And so you really have to do the deep work to say, I desire, I want.
Mhm.
And it's hard because it's like, it feels selfish.
Yeah. No,
But
but
even just
we
writing
need
them down and starting there really, really shapes it.
Yeah. Great, great, great message, Michelle. I'm so glad that you agreed to come on, and the listeners are really getting a real treat. How do they get a hold of you? The Mama Genius Festival, the Hub. Share some. I will have links in the description everywhere, but share some things while they're listening.
So the biggest thing is, I do need to get the festival still on it, but connectingmamas.com does have everything else right now. But the festival, actually, it should be on this week, I would think. We just got the landing pages done for attendees. It doesn't start till October 1st, so we still do have time, but everything should be on connectingmamas.com, or you can find me on Connecting Mamas on Facebook business page, and come into the Facebook group, because the next festival is just live in the Facebook group. So go to Lisa's page to get the landing page, and it's just mamageniushub.com/festival OTC for October 2024, to just sign up, and you can see Lisa's picture on that page right now. Actually, it's there. And sign up to get the links, and put your email in there so you can get daily reminders. And as moms listening to this, I want you not to feel overwhelmed by the list of speakers, but I want, again, this comes back to your intuition and really starting to hone in, what do I want? What do I need? And so when you look at speakers, you just ask, what is like 2 or 3 messages that I need from this list? And you just let your intuition guide you. That's what you set your time aside for. It is 18 days long to help us start changing our habits slowly. So 1 talk a day, more than enough. But it's a habit of changing our perspective and seeing and asking ourselves, this is what I need. That one right there. Making a decision for yourself.
Actually, I know this is in perpetuity, but I'm actually planning on releasing this on October 1st. So it's got some significance there. Yeah. So we'll be really excited. I'm going to be sharing all over the place when we can do the sharing. And I know I've brought in, I think it'll end up being hopefully a full 4 people as speakers. So that would be fantastic. Yeah. So thank you again, Michelle. It's so
Thank you for having
appreciative.
me.
Oh, it was wonderful listening to you speak. And I know the stories that you're telling and about yourself and the fact that you had courage to do every step of the way, leaping out of your comfort zone. It really is what helps our listeners to get their own confidence and their own courage to be able to do the same thing.
I just want to remind you, I love that you say leaping out of your comfort zone because we are wired to stay in our comfort zone. So again, the easiest way and the funnest way to do it is find a group that is starting to level up. It doesn't have to be Mama Genius, but find the level up group, set your boundaries, and keep listening to Lisa's podcast.
Thank you. Thanks, Michelle. Everybody have a great day. And thank you for joining and subscribe and follow and all that stuff so that you can hear and see all the new episodes coming on the 1st and the 8th of the month. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening or watching. Please subscribe to the Ladies Who Leap podcast to be notified of new episodes. And I would love to hear from you. Let me know what works, what doesn't, and if you have a story to tell, please reach out. Come join the Leap community at the Ladies Who Leap Club Facebook group. Remember, leaping out of your comfort zone is where the growth happens.